All right, everybody. I just wanted to give you some directions. We are not going to have class today. And so I want to share the 3 activities we were going to do during class. And then please feel free to email me any questions or anything as they come up. Now, all of these connect to your learning target videos. So if you do these activities and the learning target video and quizzes, then you will be in primo shape. And this is my dog, Bingo. He's just hanging out. Bingo, say hi to everybody. All right, so there's the 3 activities I'm going to show you. The first one is the one we started in class the other day, the JFK Inaugural Address. If you open that activity in Shobi, it says that there is the inaugural address for everyone. Here's a reworded text that's easier to read. A Cold War timeline that gives you a little background information that will help you. And then each group was given one JFK profile. So there was the Cuban exile, the Soviet diplomat, or the civil rights activist. The purpose of that activity was for you to read the New Frontier speech and have that kind of unique perspective, have that idea of that mindset of the Soviet diplomat or the Cuban exile to interpret the speech. So really what was the goal? Was to have you interpret the New Frontier speech. What was Kennedy trying to say? Why was it a big deal? How did it change the course of America? How did it help people? How did it inspire people? The reworded text, it substitutes some of the words to make it a little easier to read. It's the exact same speech, but anything in yellow is words that they added to help clarify. So if you haven't yet, we were going to, at the start of class, discuss those questions. If you haven't yet finished this, make sure you do. Go through your profile, maybe look at the questions of the other profiles, but just really, the goal is to really interpret and understand JFK's inaugural address. That's one. Goal number 2 is we were going to talk about the New Frontier and Kennedy's assassination a little bit. The assassination of JFK is really interesting because of the conspiracy theories. So if you want to know more about that, be sure to Google it, watch some videos. There's something cool called the Zapruder film, which is like the only footage of the event, and it's just interesting. It's not like a big part of the test or anything, but just something kind of interesting to learn more about, especially if you're into conspiracy theories. The second thing we were going to do is we were going to look at this Warren Court small group activity. The Warren Court is the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Earl Warren, and he is appointed by Eisenhower. There's some of this background information up here. He's appointed by Eisenhower in the early 1950s, and he just has a lot of landmark decisions. So Brown versus Board, Miranda v. Arizona, and one I don't know if you've heard of or not, we mentioned it the other day, Tinker v. Des Moines. So there's a lot of just interesting stuff. And it's called the Warren Court, named after him. Also, side note, the investigation into JFK's assassination was done by the Warren Commission, named after him too. So this activity is not due on April 13th, 3 years ago. That would be crazy. And it is not worth 50 points. This is just the handout that I'm using that I took from another teacher. But what it does is it gives you some background and it describes the task. And really what the goal of this activity is, you can see that it's multiple pages, is that you are going to really look at some of these Supreme Court cases and you're going to answer these questions. There are 6 questions, and just really kind of come to understand some of these big decisions. So there are 5 cases. You do not need to do all 5. The goal of the activity was going to be you were going to be put in a group and each person would do 1. So for instance, person 1 would have done Map B, Ohio, somebody else would have done Escobedo, somebody else would have done Miranda, somebody else would have done Engel Vital, and somebody else would have done Tinker. And then you would share information. So there's no expectation for you to do all of these, and we talk about these in the Learning Target video. But if you look through the questions, it's really like, what happened in the case? What are the key issues? And essentially, why was it a big deal? How does it affect us? The one thing you really have to know is anytime the Supreme Court makes a decision, it has a legacy. It is the law until either the Supreme Court overrules itself, changes an earlier decision, which basically doesn't happen, or, which is much more likely, is Congress makes a new law. They change a law. So for instance, in Escobedo v. Illinois, they made a decision. Even though that's like 60 years ago, that's still the law. That's still the interpretation. So the Supreme Court, whether it's gay marriage or marijuana or immigrant rights or rights of the accused or criminals or whatever decision they make, that becomes the interpretation of the law. So the goal of this activity was to look through some of these cases. It's also in the learning target video. This was just going to be kind of a discussion activity in class. So I highly suggest you take it some time and check at least one case out to go through that process. But it could be interesting for you to look at a couple. Okay, number 3. So JFK was 1, Warren Court was 2. Now Great Society is number 3. And just like with the New Frontier speech, we were going to take LBJ, the president after JFK. We were going to take his Great Society speech. These are excerpts. It's not the full speech. We were going to take this speech and we were going to analyze it. We're going to look at some of these questions. Now, the questions are to help you interpret. So for instance, the first one says, what is the Great Society? So using the speech, you're going to come up with a definition. What did LBJ mean when he said, we want to create a great society? Number 2 says, what are the 3 actions that are necessary to achieve this great society? So when you read through it, he talks about there are 3 areas that they have to work on, and what are these actions? What are they going to do? Number 3 says this is his official transcript. This is what he wrote, or his speechwriter wrote. And they capitalize the word nation in the first paragraph. Why do they capitalize the word nation? Why is that important in number 3? Number 4 says what historical events were occurring at the same time. So we're in the mid-1960s. So you got civil rights movement, Vietnam War, just had the assassination of Kennedy. So what's going on in the country and how does that apply to, you think, the president or the federal government? So analyzing the context for number 4. And then number 5 says how can the Great Society be compared to the New Deal? LBJ was called a New Deal Democrat. In other words, he agreed with FDR and he was in Congress while FDR was president during the Great Depression. So how does the Great Society either reverse the New Deal or build on the New Deal? Is it the same as the New Deal? So number 5, you need to make that connection. After reading this speech, what you know in the text, after doing the learning target video, how does it all connect? All right, guys, thanks for being flexible. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. 3 assignments that I want you to look at for today. That's what we would have done in class. JFK Inaugural, Warren Court small group activity, and the Great Society. You don't have to do anything in groups. You can work with a partner. Do whatever you want. The idea is really kind of develop your thinking. Make sure you deeply understand the material. And anytime, shoot me an email. I'll respond as I'm able to. And I will keep you posted on the plan for next week. But just remember, tentatively, we'll have class Monday and test Tuesday. So I'll be in communication if anything's going to change, but I hope you guys have a great day. Go Dragons!